to English class or Unit 3, Galileo Galilei. Students, we studied in the previous class about the telescope, the first telescope that Galileo made. How was it? And before that, the first telescope, how was the telescope of Hans Liffersche? And later how he made the one magnified about 3 times, 8 times, and then the objects were making 30 times nearer. So with the help of this, what he made, what is the important about the telescope, all about, let us see further in this lesson. So with the aid of this telescope, he made important discoveries about the heavenly bodies. He found that the planet Jupiter had little moons that revolved around it. He found that the sun had spots on it, that his spots slowly moved across its face. He found from this that the sun, like the earth, spins round itself. Means, after discovering the telescope, the scientist Galileo, what things he invented? He found many heavenly bodies, celestial events. What he found? He found that the planet Jupiter had little moons that are revolving around the Jupiter. He also found that the sun had spots on it. You can see, if you look at the sun, even though he is looking bright, there are also spots on the black spots on the face of the sun. He also found the sun, like the earth, spins around itself. It also rotates around itself. Some 50 years earlier, a Polish astronomer called Copernicus had declared that the earth was a planet like the other planets, and like them it revolved round the sun. Copernicus could not, however, prove this to be the man of his day, and few people paid any great attention to his ideas. So before 50 years of this before 50 years of invention of this telescope, the astronomer from Poland called Copernicus, what declared? The earth was a planet like the earth. Another planets also, like other planets like Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus. So our earth was also a planet. So who declared? Copernicus declared the earth was a planet, and that like them it revolved. It also revolves around the sun. So all this who said? Copernicus declared. Copernicus could not, however, prove this to the men of these days. A few people only gave the attention about this idea of Copernicus. Only few people believed this. Then what happened? Galileo was the first great student of astronomy to realize that the ideas of Copernicus were true, and the first scholar to begin to teach them at the university. So people could not believe. Only few people believed about the Copernicus and his ideas. But Galileo made the people to believe all these. So Galileo is said to be the first great student of astronomy because he studied deeply and realized that the ideas of the Copernicus withdrew. His new teaching caused great excitement among the learned men, because it meant that all their teaching was completely wrong. They began to oppose him, and many of them became his enemies. Then he got into trouble with the church. His ideas about the sun and the earth were different from what the Bible seemed to say. So the followers of the church began to look upon him as a wicked and dangerous man. See, many people were not believing the Copernicus, but Galileo made to make them believe about the theories of the Copernicus. Even though people started making his theories are wrong, his teachings are wrong, they don't want to believe him because it was written in the Bible that the earth were different from what the Bible seemed to say. His ideas were about the sun and the earth. What we are believing now, sun is constant, earth and other planets are revolving around the sun. This is the idea correct, but people don't want to believe this because the church began to look upon him and they were thinking that he is the wicked person and made him dangerous man. He was not wicked and dangerous, but all people thought he is a dangerous person. Let us see what will happen. The church had in those days a court called the Inquisition, which tried and punished those that it considered unbelievers. So after that, the church had in those days, what was there? Like a court to inquire about the queries. It is called Inquisition. So they tried and punished who were not believing. They were punished by the court. Galileo was asked to appear before this court. They asked him to come in front of the court in the church. He was questioned about his beliefs and was asked to kneel and declare that he no longer believed that the earth moved round the sun. They questioned him and made him to prove it that the earth is revolving around the sun in front of the court. He knew that if he refused to make this declaration, so he has to make the truth of this declaration. Otherwise, he might be put in prison and perhaps tortured. If he could not declare the truth, he might be put in the prison, jail, and get the torture in the jail. As he feared torture, Galileo obeyed their order. So from this, he has to obey the order of this. There is a story that as he rose from his knees after his public declaration, he whispered to himself, but still it does not move. But still it does move. The court ordered Galileo not to teach his wicked ideas anymore. So even he declared, the court means all the people could not believe this and said, don't teach these wicked. Wicked means these are not divine, because before this already were declared in the Bible. Those were all believed by the people. So court asked not to teach this wicked, and they thought this is the wicked idea of the Galileo. But Galileo did not obey the church's orders for long. He continued his studies and after a time started teaching his ideas again. Besides, he wrote a book in which he criticized the old beliefs. But he was not simply sad. He also tried. He made people to believe this. And his teachings and his ideas made the people again to say to be the ideas the wicked and dangerous. But he wrote a book in which he criticized the old beliefs. What the people were believing, those were criticized by the Galileo in a book. After Inquisition once again ordered him to appear before it to be tried as a non-believer. So by this, when the book was written, the Inquisition, the court again called him to come in front of court and try it, and made him as non-believer. After a long trial, he was sent to prison. See, from this again he is sent to prison. But as he was now an old man, he was allowed to go home 22 days later. So like this, Galileo wrote a book and started teaching his ideas. But people started criticizing him and made him to stand before the court and tried to identify him as non-believer. Non-believer means unbeliever. Non-believer means unbeliever, one who does not believe in God. What he was telling, all those are not believed by the God. The people were thinking like this. But his ideas are true today. This is what this lesson trying to tell about the great astronomer Galileo. So court decided him as a non-believer, and after a long trial he was sent to prison. Again he sent to stay in the jail. But as he was old man, they again sent him after 22 days later, they sent him to home. So this is all about the great efforts made by Galileo after inventing the telescope, the very important invention which we are using for our purpose, for our uses. We are watching the sky, celestial events. Those are all the contribution of Galileo, the great astronomer. So he is the first scholar to begin to teach the ideas about the sun and the planets, and also the spots on the sun. Not only this, he also invented there are many moons around the planet Jupiter. So this is all about the lesson Galileo Galilei.